You know, with ammo costs being what it is today, and some of it's scarce on top of that, we don't need to be wasting a lot of ammo trying to sight in a scope on a rifle. So I'm going to show you an effective and efficient way to sight in a rifle without using a lot of ammo. Let's go to the range, give it a try. Hey guys, this is an AR-10 by Armalite, and I'm sighting in a new scope. This is a Weaver 1x5 tactical scope. Now, I've already meticulously mounted this scope. I may be a little pickier than others, but I want to know that my scope vertical crosshair runs through the center line of the bore of my rifle. At most, probably the ranges we shoot at, that's not a big deal. But as the range gets further out, if you don't have your crosshair vertical and it's offset, it's going to give you a horizontal offset, maybe enough to cause a miss on an important shot. So my first step was to get this thing mounted, and it is mounted as precisely as I can do it. I use a 2-level system, and I've got that done. And the next thing I'm going to do is bore sight it. If you're not familiar with what bore sighting means, it means I want to look down the center of the rifle barrel, right through the bore. And I'm going to line that bore up at a specific place on the target. And without moving the rifle then, I'm going to adjust my scope to that same point. And I'll do that in just a minute, but let me make you aware of one thing. When you do this, when you're bore sighting, the scope knobs, the up and down and left and right, work exactly backwards to the way they do when you're shooting and adjusting the scope. And let me explain why. I know it sounds crazy. Typically when we're shooting, we are aligning the scope with a central point on the target. And then when we adjust the controls, it brings the rifle into that point. When you're bore sighting, it's just the opposite. The rifle is on a specific point on the target, and we're bringing our scope to that point. Well, because we're doing it backwards, the controls are backwards. So when you're bore sighting, don't just look up here and say, I need to move down and see which way the dial says and move it down. You have to move it up to go down. You have to move it left to go right. So keep that in mind if you ever do this. I'm going to get this set up and I'll get back to you. Okay, let me show you my setup here. I've got a Caldwell adjustable rest in front and a Caldwell bag at the rear. And I'll just say this, that this is one of the best things I've bought for shooting rifles and sighting and testing them and things like that. I have removed the lower receiver from the upper receiver, and I've taken out the charging handle and the bolt. And what I did was look down the bore, and I lined it up right about the middle of the target. Now that's not actually my sighting in target, but I'm trying to be sure that I'm on the center of the paper, so I've got a lot of room for error if I don't get this sighted just right. And now without moving the rifle, I see my sight is pretty much what I'm seeing through the bore. So now it's a matter of putting it back together and firing that first shot. Okay, with it bore sighted, what I want to do next is shoot one round. And remember, I'm trying to do this with a minimum expenditure of ammo. This is a Federal premium ammo. It doesn't come cheap, and I don't want to spend a bunch of bucks zeroing my rifle. So I'm going to try to do this with one shot to find out where I am, adjust my scope accordingly, and then fire a group of 3 shots and make sure I'm there. And I may even adjust as I go. So here we go. By the way, this first shot needs to be shot with the utmost care. What we're trying to do is find out where the rifle shoots without shooting a group of 3. So it's very important you shoot very precisely. Here we go. Okay, that hit pretty low, and much to the left. And the next thing I'm going to do is go out and actually measure how far off I am to the left and right. So I'll go do that. Okay, here's where I got from the initial bore sight. I was aiming right here. And the reason I wanted to aim there is because that's pretty much the center of my paper backer. So if the bullet went off of this or high, I'd still have a chance of seeing it. So it's actually pretty close. So I'm going to measure over to the center, and it's 3 inches. So I'm off 3 inches to the left and down about 1 3/4. So I'll go change my scope, and I'm expecting to be hitting right here. Okay, time to adjust my scope. Now I was about 3 inches to the left, and this time I'm sighting the scope to where the rifle impacted, or actually the rifle to where the scope was set. So this now goes back to left is left and right is right. So I'm not bore sighting, I'm actually changing my scope and rifle impact. So this is a 1/4 inch per click at 100 yards. I'm at 50 yards, so I'll only get an 1/8 of an inch click. So to go 3 inches, it's 3 times 8 or 24. So here we go, and I want to go to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4. What I should have done is actually look at my dial here and go by that. I may have miscounted just a bit. Now going up, I want to go up 1 3/4. So 1 3/4 and 1/8 is 8 plus 6 is 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Now that's going to be pretty close. I'm going to shoot one shot, give it another try. All right, same point of aim, and I'm hoping for a closer shot. All right, let's go see how that did. Okay guys, let's take another look. Now remember, I'm aiming just below that. I have a dot in this sight, and I've got just the slightest amount of air gap in there, and you can see where this bullet hit. Now, I was off about 3 inches, and there was a lot of clicks to get it over here. I could have miscounted. I could have had 2 click at once. I might have missed one and counted it as a extra click and it didn't, or I may just be off a little bit, but that's a pretty close shot. I need to adjust it up just a little bit, but it's at this point I'm going to move up to the center and start shooting groups now. But you can see within 2 shots I'm very close to 0. I'll probably shoot one, see where it lands, and adjust the scope accordingly. Okay, here we go. Now I'm going to move up to the central part of the target, and just to make some excuses in case this doesn't work right, I am shooting a tactical scope. I've got a 5x multiplication. By tactical, I mean it's got a dot in the center. It's a pretty good sized dot, and it can hide things that you'd rather not have hidden. It is a first focal plane scope, so as I zoom in on the target, the reticle gets bigger. But let's give it a try and see what happens. That would have been a disaster. Okay guys, let's review. Of course, the goal is to sight in my scope with a minimum number of rounds. We're paying $2 a round. That can get expensive. If we don't get it just right, can cost us a box, which would be a $40 expenditure for nothing. Let's look at where we started. From bore sighting, I hit right here, aiming right here. I measured this, I measured my scope and fired a second shot and got right here. I went back without making any adjustments to the scope and shot at this point, and as you can see, almost dead center on this thing. Now, that doesn't mean it's sighted in. I'm going to shoot 2 more shots. If they're good and they're grouped right there, I will move it up just a touch. But as you can see, so far, 1, 2, 3 shots, and this thing's pretty close to sighted in. It's just now confirming point of impact. Some of that depends on me. Well, it turns out it was sighted in pretty well. Didn't get the groups I had hoped to get, but that's another issue. I got it sighted in, and I got it sighted in about 3 rounds. That's pretty good. The key here is that first round, you have to shoot it as carefully as you possibly can, because it's going to be indicative of how much you may need to adjust your scope. Once you get that second shot, you then start, if it's close like mine was, you then need to start maybe shooting a group and seeing where you are. But the process is pretty simple, and it doesn't use a lot of ammo, and it beats shooting 3 groups here and a shot of 3 groups here, a group of 3 shots here, and a group of 3 shots here, and a group of 3 shots here. That's 9. I did it in about 4. So just depends on how far you want to go with it.